So finally we are at top tier. So if this is the first video you're watching, this is actually the final video in the series. I will link bottom tier video in the description. So please watch the first few minutes of that just so you have an idea for how the tier list is actually structured and ordered. As a reminder though, for everyone else though, that since this is top tier, we are going back to ordered tiers. I will be starting with the lowest character in top tier and then work up to the best character in top tier and what I think to be is the best character in the entire game. So I wanted to wait until today because it is September 27th, which means it is now the 6th anniversary of the Wii U version releasing, at least here in North America. So happy birthday, Hyrule Warriors. It released a bit earlier in Japan and Europe, but I'm in North America, so I'm going to use the North American dates. There's also something else happening later today, which most of you probably know about. I'll get to that at the end of the video, though. So, what is top tier? I think top tier is pretty much characters that are mostly on par with characters in high tier, but they have something special that just puts them over the top. It might be something that makes them the best at a certain niche in the game. It might be something that just makes them completely ridiculous in a certain type of stage. Something like that. I just think they have some aspect that just puts them way above everyone else. And that's pretty much what I feel like is top tier. So let's get into it. So in high tier, I did mention that there was one character I had in high tier but bumped up to top tier. This is Wizzaro. This is the character I bumped up, although he is the lowest character in top tier, but I feel like he did just barely make the cut. So why is he here? C1, that's most of the reason. C1, it's an infinite, it does ridiculous damage, it works against everything in the game. If someone else is trying to run up behind you, you can just turn around, grab them, they're stuck in the infinite as well. There's nothing they can do to counterplay against this, it's so dumb. C4 absolutely shreds through giant boss weak point gauges and also being darkness element for both C1 and C4, or they're gonna be dealing that extra damage because of targeting a single enemy, and that's just really delicious. The one reason why I did keep him in high tier originally is because his wave clear is not so great. C4 is his best option, but it's kind of dependent because sometimes it will kill enemies in one hit and sometimes it doesn't, so you're gonna have to use C4 a second time. So that kind of sucks, but I feel like wave clear is kind of like one of the areas that doesn't matter too much. As long as you aren't overly terrible at it, then anything, as long as it's passing, that's good enough, and he does excellent in every other aspect, so I think he does just barely make the cut into top tier. Just barely though. Wizzaro has this mechanic as well as just, you know, setting up the flames and then using your orbs to detonate them, and he has this like tricky trap playstyle. You can honestly just ignore that, just use the hand, that's all you really need. He's like deceptively difficult, but then you realize, oh wait, he's actually one of the most straightforward characters in the game, and then he just stomps over everything, so yeah. Moving on from a deceptively difficult character to a genuinely difficult character, the spinner is possibly the most difficult weapon in the game to master. You need to know how to manage your small decoy spinners, you need to know their interactions with all of your other moves, you need to know like how to plant them, how to ricochet them into other ones, and it takes a learning curve, but once you do get it, it flows so well. The spinner is constantly moving. It is very difficult to hit, so it does get plenty of points in safety because you're just constantly moving. You're not going to be easy to hit. C4, C5, C6, mostly C5 and C6 are really great at getting KOs, especially if you do have decoy spinners out for C5. You can cover some really nice range with that, and C6 just like blows up everything in front of you. C5, again with using decoy spinners, can shred through giant boss weak point gauges, so that's really nice. Now 1v1, this is the part where you have to learn stuff. So pretty much against like standard enemies like Poes, Moblins, and stuff like that, you can basically infinite them when they're on the other side of the map by just using like a C1, C2, C3, C1, C2, C3 loop. So I mean, that's ridiculous, or you can just do it right in front of them, but it's more hilarious when you're like 3 keeps away and you can still do it, but still, that's not why it's top tier. Basically, all of these attacks, they do juggle enemies in specific ways. You have C1, which just gets them into the air, like when you're actually hitting like decoy spinners. C1 will launch them into the air, C2 will launch them towards you, C3 will kind of like drag them away, C4 will launch them into the air as well, but with more force. C5 kind of keeps them in the air since they kind of spin around. C6 will just detonate and do a ton of damage. And you really do need to kind of like figure out like what's the best in the situation, where should the spinners be placed, but once you do get it, it flows so well and it's so fun. But yeah, it is top tier. One of the lower ones in top tier, but still top tier. Sia has so many traps. She's a really versatile character and she can kind of adapt to anything. C2 is one of the best wave clear options in the game. It doesn't have too much range on its own, but the fact that it's a C2 means you can get to it extremely quickly and you can spam it ridiculously quick, so you can get plenty of KOs that way. In terms of safety, yeah, C2, C5, C6, all of them kind of cover all around you, while C3, you have a really far-reaching projectile, deals really nice damage, so you can alternate between either kind of staying from a really safe distance away, or you can just kind of cover everything around you and you don't have to worry about anything sneaking up on you. Giant bosses, C4, 5, and 6 all just completely obliterate giant boss weak point gauges. And C1, particularly because it does infuse you with the darkness effects, you can just guarantee the darkness bonus damage will apply when you're hitting the giant boss weak point smash if you do have C1 active, which is really nice to have as well. Going on from that, in 1v1, again, you can kind of either play from distance, you can try to set up like C5 and like lure enemies into traps, you can launch them with C1, or C2, sorry. You have plenty of options there. Her damage is really nice, she's a darkness character, so her weak point smash is going to deal ridiculous damage. And the main thing is also C1 does inflict you with super armor, or not inflict I guess, but grants you super armor, which the main point of that also means that you can just run through Gibdo and Redead Screams completely unaffected. So those aren't a problem at all. You don't have to worry about trying to position around them or anything. You can just run right through the Screams and just start hitting them. So Sia, she pretty much adapts to everything. She's really solid, and yeah, top tier. So Skull Kid, this is now where we're going to start seeing some of the heavy hitters. So C3 is by far the best wave clear in the entire game. He gets KOs faster than anyone else. Of course, like I said earlier, that's kind of one of the least important aspects to be good at, but thankfully he's very good at pretty much everything else as well, so having the best wave clear is just kind of a bonus. C4 will just laugh at giant boss weak point gauges and just shred through them ridiculously quickly. And then in terms of 1v1, C2 is a very excellent juggle tool. C6 can do ridiculous amounts of damage once you've gotten them in the air with C2, and that's a really nice finisher. It'll stun them so they don't have to worry about them escaping. Yeah. And he has plenty of range between C3 and C4, so he can play at a safe distance as well. And then once you're ready, you can approach with C2 and just get enemies in the air, and they're stuck in there, and you can kind of just do whatever you want with them. So he's just outside of top 5. He's number 6, but now we are going to be entering top 5. So 5th place overall, we have Toon Zelda. So C1 is the main reason why she's here. It keeps her completely mobile and has a constant hitbox. She has like basically the same speed and mobility as she does as she's running, but with a constant hitbox, and it's an infinite, and it breaks shields, and it has super armor, so she can roll through Gibdo and Redead Screams unaffected, and it's really great at breaking weak point gauges, and that's everything she can do with just spamming a single move. And it's also really great at wave clear. Like C1's just ridiculous. But on top of that, C2, also another infinite. C3 and C4 are finishers. They do quite nice damage, although I would prefer to use C5, which is another finisher, although it has better range, better damage, and also invincibility while she is outside of the armor. Against giant bosses, with Hasty, she is able to take down all of them. I feel like Toon Zelda probably is one of the more reliant picks in top tier, because she does really require Hasty to be good against giant bosses. So if you don't have Hasty, she probably would be one of, if not the only character here to drop down high tier if you were assuming a tier list with no Hasty attacks equipped. But Hasty does help her. She can just go through any giant boss ridiculously easy. And yeah, I think overall she might be contender for one of the best characters at 1v1 in the game, just because C1 is ridiculous. You can just keep enemies in the air, you can constantly move, you can just constantly grab more enemies to just keep them in the juggle, and you can just move around the map, so it's not, you don't have to stay in one place to try to get enemies killed. You can kind of just drag them along, and if there's like another enemy on like the other side of the map, you can kind of just drag your enemy over to them, and then you can just start attacking both of them at the same time, so you don't have to deal with the one or the other. You can kind of just deal with both of them. And damage is really great. Infinites everywhere, break shields, Gibdo, Rita, Scream immunity. Yeah, she does a lot of stuff. She puts in work. 5th place. Fourth place, Ganondorf with the Great Swords. So the very rough explanation I give for him, even this isn't probably the most accurate, but it's basically, hey, what if we made the Great Fairy good? So C1 and C6 both have really nice range, incredible damage, but they're also ridiculously quick. They have a bit of invincibility on them as well, but they're also much quicker, and he has every other move, C2 to C5, is also just really fast, so you don't have to stick with those long animation cutscenes for every attack as well. He can actually just get in there and deal high amounts of damage in a really short time as well, especially with Hasty. He moves ridiculously quick even with Hasty, even though he's supposed to be kind of a slow, strong powerhouse type. C3 is a really nice projectile. C2 is a great launcher. C5 is also another really nice wave clear option that's a bit quicker. It doesn't have quite as much reach, but you have that damage, and also it's a really nice finisher for if you've got an enemy in the air, you can just use C5 as a finisher and deals plenty of damage. You're great. Giant bosses aren't a problem. C5 again. Safety, again, he has invincibility a bit on C1 and C6. He has plenty of range, so that's not really a problem for him. He covers all around him. And yeah, damage is high because he's Ganondorf, so that's kind of a thing that's gonna happen. So yeah, he kills through everything ridiculously quickly. There's not much that stands in his way. Young Link at 3rd. Yeah, people are gonna yell about this. Fierce DD on his own is definitely the best character in the game. Young Link himself on his own, even without Fierce DD, is a really solid character as well. I mean, Fierce DD does basically everything. I mean, you don't have to explain that. But pretty much, I feel like the one thing holding him back in bit, and that's why he's in 3rd place, is because he just doesn't have a lot of consistency with Fierce DD. He isn't always going to be able to have access to Fierce DD. Like, if you are looking at most mission types, like the standard, like, collect keeps, get 1,200 KOs, finish under 15 minutes, like those kind of missions, and you have to defeat the commander, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, he's absolutely solid there. But then there's other missions like quiz missions or defeat all enemy missions where it's like you don't have a lot of enemies, you won't be able to really keep Fierce DD up the entire time. And if you're dealing with missions where you have to deal with several giant bosses at once, that's going to be kind of a pain, because they're just going to be sitting there waiting and draining your magic while you're just sitting there and waiting for their weak point gauge to get exposed, or you have to use the special to open it up, or not special, but end your focus sphere to open it up manually. But now you're out of Fierce DD, and if you're focusing on giant bosses, there probably won't be too many enemies around to actually build up your special gauge again, and it's just not entirely consistent. But for a huge majority of the game, yes, he is absolutely fantastic. and he is definitely a top tier character, just not quite the best in the game. Another thing is that this is a hasty attack tier list, and Young Link doesn't really want hasty since that doesn't affect his performance in Fierce Steedy mode, so it's kind of like a few other characters are gonna be bumped up, or at least one other character will be bumped up, maybe not two, but since you'll see next. But that kind of does hurt, in rough quotes, him a bit. But yes, he is absolutely still a beyond fantastic character, and I believe in the Switch version, if you are, or 3DS and Switch, if you're including like My Fairy Magic and Magic Fountain and stuff like that, yeah, he's by far the best character in the game, but you don't have that here in the Wii U version, so you have to deal with what you got. Master Sword in second place. Sometimes all you really do need are insane damage mod and some laser beams. So the Hylian Sword kit is already just kind of solid. It's not too great, not too terrible. It does its job, but if you just do that and give it ridiculous damage and sword beams while at full health, it kind of does everything but way better. So wow, who would have thunk? And yeah, this is kind of what I meant by hasty is questionable, because this doesn't Master Sword is not able to equip hasty, but it doesn't really need hasty when it's just gonna bomb out everything like 2 hits anyways, regardless of the mission type. I know I did just rag on Young Link for not being consistent, and but the Master Sword is only consistent when it's at full health. Yeah, that's true, but in the Wii U version, since you are pretty much playing to never get hit in the first place, since the damage requirements are so strict, I don't see that as much of a problem. You're going to be pretty much having to play the game at full health anyways, regardless of what character you are playing. You also have 3 potions, so if you get hit once, you can use a potion. You get hit a second time, you can use a potion. You get hit a third time, you can just use a potion. Get hit a 4th time, you've probably already gotten hit enough that you've lost your A rank. So yeah, you have ways to just get yourself back up to full health immediately, and that's not restricted of mission type. You can just be at full health in pretty much every mission. There's not any like force damage that you will ever have to take, so it is a consistent boost that you pretty much have at all times. But anyways, yeah, with sword beams, you absolutely have ridiculous wave clear. They absolutely help with the giant boss weak point gauges, just striking them ridiculously quickly. Go through all of them in record time. C2 and just other attacks are really great in 1v1, especially because they just go through health so quickly because you have so ridiculous amounts of damage. Weak point smashes, of course, you can deal a lot of damage. Light elemental effect is going to also help a bit because you are just hitting so many enemies with your sword beams, so the effect's most likely going to be active all the time, so that's not really a problem. So you're just also getting that extra bit of damage as well. So yeah, it kind of just does everything. Of course, it's the Master Sword. What would you expect? So Volga is who I have put as the best character in Hyrule Warriors. In 1v1, he's absolutely ridiculous. C2 goes so quick that you probably will need practice to get the hang of it because it moves so quick that you can like barely see it. But C2 does ridiculous damage. Break shields isn't infinite. You can just keep enemies in the air very easily with it. It's an option that you can just kind of rely on in any situation for the most part. C3 and C4 are both very nice wave clear options. C5 kind of as well, but it's a bit too slow. I'd rather use C3 or C4. Against giant bosses, C3 will do very, very nice damage just because you're guaranteed to get all 3 hits in because giant bosses are giant. That's in their name. Wow. So yeah, that absolutely just destroys your giant boss weak point gauges. No problem there. Safety. C3 and C4 again have really nice range. C5 while you're in the air have invincibility and you just explode and hurt everything around you while you land, so you don't have any worries there. And just in general, Volga is so ridiculously quick and he is going to be moving around a lot with both his autos and C2. C1 kind of doesn't see much use because, I mean, it's a bit slow and it breaks shields, but also C2 breaks shields and that's way quicker and kind of does more stuff anyways, so you kind of can just ignore C1. but he is very excellent at pretty much everything. There is not a single negative I could really think of with Volga. He does everything that you would want in a character. So that is why I have him at number 1. And the tier list is now finally done. So I feel like you could probably see that I was definitely losing interest in this game. I was getting really burned out. I said this kind of in the high tier video as well, but yeah, I'm just really burned out on Hyrule Warriors. Originally, I was going to say that I'm probably done with Hyrule Warriors videos until a sequel gets announced, but then a sequel did actually get announced, and that's what's kind of getting announced later today, or the next part of info reveal for it. The thing is, my interest in Breath of the Wild is non-existent. I really don't care about Breath of the Wild, and if all they have to show in that trailer or direct thing later today is just look more Breath of the Wild content in the game, then I'm really not interested. Yeah. And I'm not expecting them to reveal anything else. I feel like it is going to be entirely Breath of the Wild centric game, which if that's what you're excited for, absolutely be happy, but it's just that's not what I'm interested in. So I'm probably not even buying it. So definitely I'm done with Hyrule Warriors videos. I'm definitely done. So yeah. For other videos though, I might start branching out into Dragalia Lost, because it's another game I've been playing way too much over the past year, 2 years. It's actually the game's 2nd anniversary today as well, so lots of things are happening today. Yeah, I'm actually recording this on the 25th. They just released the anniversary update, and I'm just so exhausted. There's way too much different. Oh god, there's way too much stuff to farm. But maybe if I get settled in, used to the update, I might make videos on Dragalia Lost. But as of now, I'm done with Hyrule Warriors videos. That's a definite. I'm done with them. So that's it. Thanks for sticking around, and hopefully you all enjoyed the tier list. That's it. Bye.